Good morning, everyone. First, my apologies for confusion over our live meetings and then not being able to attend the one on Thursday night. I suddenly got sick with a stomach problem, and while it's resolved, it certainly is a little bit scary during these times. So you see me here with my spring break background video. It's where I'd rather be, is at the beach in Florida, it looks like, or the Caribbean somewhere. So I'm having a little fun with that right now. This video is to talk about the building blocks of mood disorders, and it's the first one of two videos that I'm going to make on this topic today and hopefully post by the evening tonight. I also see that two of my videos are from an expired video series from the library, and so I'll be replacing those today as well as continuing to place videos in all future classes. So building blocks of mood disorders, you really need to get out your DSM-5 and look at the building blocks themselves. They start with the bipolar section, bipolar and related disorders section on page 123, which describes first a manic episode on page 124, then hypomanic, then major depressive episode. Those are the three building blocks of mood disorders. So you need to master those symptom lists first before we move on to using the mood disorders diagnoses themselves. So I'm going to go into the set of slides for this class, and let me share my screen here. I'm starting at slide number 3. Mood disorders are basically split into two categories. You have depressive disorders and you have bipolar disorders. Bipolar disorders are either manic episodes themselves or manic episodes mixed with depressive episodes. So you really need to familiarize yourself with the DSM section on pages 123 to 126 that I just spoke about in the DSM. So for a major depressive episode, right, you have to experience 5 of the following: depressed mood most of the day, every day, disinterest in previously pleasurable activities, changes in weight and appetite, either up or down, about 5%. Changes, the 5% is change in weight, changes in sleep, changes in motor activity, fatigue or loss of energy, feelings of worthlessness or guilt, decreased concentration or indecisiveness, and recurrent thoughts of death or suicide. The symptoms have to cause distress or impairment at some level, and it needs to have a duration of 2 weeks, at least 14 continuous days where these symptoms were experienced. In children, you might see more irritability than you will see depressed mood. So it might be irritable mood and depressed mood. And yes, even very young children can experience depression. That's a change in psychiatric thinking over the last 30 years, but I'm certain that you've already seen it yourselves in some children. So that's a major depressive episode. It's a building block for the diagnosis. A manic episode is very much what you've seen and heard about it in general media. It's an elevated, expansive, or irritable mood, inflated self-esteem or grandiosity, decreased need for sleep, more talkative or pressured speech, racing thoughts, which is called a flight of ideas in psychiatric lingo, increased distractibility, increased goal-directed activity or psychomotor agitation, excessive involvement in pleasure activities that have high risks of negative consequences. Frequently, this is gambling, sex, pornography, video gaming, spending. And the symptoms have to cause either significant distress or impairment or hospitalization to prevent harm, or psychotic symptoms, delusions, hallucinations. It has a duration of at least 1 week, 7 days in a row, or any length if the person needs to be hospitalized. So if they've had the symptoms for 2 days and it's caused significant distress that they have to be hospitalized to prevent harm, they get that diagnosis. And specifically, it is not caused by antidepressant medication. So if somebody's taking antidepressant medication, which sometimes can cause somebody to feel this elevated mood, that's a rule out for this diagnosis, and they really need to see their psychiatrist or prescribing physician immediately. Now, a hypomanic episode, hypo meaning a little bit less than, is in between a manic episode and baseline, but it's enough of an issue, or the symptoms cause enough issues that the person presents themselves for treatment or a family member presents them for treatment. So they only need 3 of the following. So we here see the inflated self-esteem, decreased need for sleep, or talkative, racing thoughts, increased distractibility, the goal-directed activity, or excessive involvement in pleasurable activities that have high risk of consequences. These symptoms do not have to cause significant distress or impairment and do not have to require hospitalization in order to use this diagnosis. In this one, there can be no psychotic features. If there are, you have to use a manic episode. And the duration has to be at least 4 days, so 4 days in a row, and is not caused by antidepressant medication. So these are the main episodes. There is something called a mixed episode, which is a fourth type of episode in mood disorders. They have to meet the criteria for both a manic episode and a major depressive episode, except the duration. So instead, except the 14 days for depression, 7 days for manic, they don't have to meet either one of those durations. The symptoms have to cause significant impairment or require hospitalization, or psychotic symptoms are present. This one needs a duration of 1 week, and it cannot be caused by antidepressant medication. So these are the building blocks of a mood disorder diagnosis. So you need to have the symptoms. You need to know what the symptoms are for your particular client or consumer you're working with. You need to be able to plug those symptoms into a specific episode. And then that episode has to meet the time duration. So let's take a look at a case that I've uploaded to Moodle. And it's also embedded in this PowerPoint. So this is an actual client that I had a number of years ago who had just a very clear presentation of bipolar disorder. So you have to have your symptoms, their client report, or direct observation, clusters of symptoms plus the history and sequencing of other episodes. You need to know that information in order to pick the right, in particular, the right type of bipolar disorder or the right type of depressive disorder. And then you cluster this into the disorders. And I'll go into that in the next video. So for example, here is a client that I've called Beth. She had an expansive mood. She was very excited and happy to see everybody and happy to be engaging in all the activities she was in, and had the affect to match. And she knew that what she was doing was not normal for her and that it was harmful to her. She had a decreased need for sleep. She only slept 3 hours a night. She had racing thoughts, so these flight of ideas. Her words are, "I can't shut off my brain." She had psychomotor agitation. She was, her words, "about to jump out of my skin." Increased goal-directed activity. She started 4 quilts at the same time. Excessive pleasurable activities, and hers was either starting new relationships or shopping. And for instance, when she was shopping, she would buy all 700 collars of embroidery floss, or if there was a shirt that came available in 14 different colors, she would buy all 14 colors. She had 8 days of duration at the time that I saw her. She had impaired functioning, and she had no medical condition or substance abuse, and she was not taking antidepressant medications. So she had a manic episode and then a history of 1 major depressive episode, which will get you to a bipolar disorder diagnosis. Most recent episode manic, and it was moderate in severity. So in the next video, we're going to go over how to put these building blocks together to formulate either a bipolar disorder diagnosis or a mood disorder diagnosis. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. We'll get a view of the beach again for just a couple of minutes, and see you in video number 2. Thanks.